Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 49 of the 40k Badcast. My name is Dan Boyd, and I am joined, as always, by my special boy, Cribble McDribble.
Jesus.
Cribble, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I have finally recovered from my cumulative hangover of Adepticon.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to I was listening back to our last Adepticon episode, which we recorded 3 days ago, and we both sound just a little bit rough.
Yeah, I think astute listeners will figure out that the scratchiness is gone from our voices. We sound like our usual happy selves as opposed to our tired and drained selves like we were after Adepticon.
No, exactly. Yeah, I feel like a young man again.
So I went to a diagnostic place to get tested for my life insurance today, which is interesting because I showed up on my motorcycle.
Yeah, deductible this, motherfuckers.
Yes, it was great. They drew my blood.
This is my girl. Her name is Deathwish.
How do you do with blood draw?
I look away and I ask as many questions about the hematologist, whatever. I ask as many questions as I can. I'm like, oh, how'd you get started doing this? Huh, real interesting. Do you like taking blood? That's cool. I don't. And I just kind of look away and try to keep, it's the same thing I do when I get a tattoo, or I would do if I was at the dentist, but I can't talk because I've got way too many chunks of metal in my mouth. But yeah, I tried to focus on it because if I look over it, I'll probably just go as I watch enough blood to print a Kiss comic book get extracted from my body.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, would you believe the guy who passed out and vomited the first time he got a tattoo doesn't do so well with blood?
That's so funny.
Yeah, how about you? How do you do with blood?
Oh, fine. She got my vein on the first try and fucking just watched the little vial fill up. It was no problem.
Well, Dan, I'll have you know that you are my blood angel.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of you. I was just curious.
It's totally fine. Hey, you didn't make fun of me. I made fun of me.
All right. Well, let's move on to the AWS specs where we talk about what's on our hobby radar. And Campbell, this time it's going to be short because we did a lot of talking in our last episode about some new stuff. So we're pretty much going to be just sticking to what we've been up to for the past 2 weeks or so. So let's start with hobby progress. And I'm almost done with my 6th squad of intercessors. I'm on the highlight layer. I'm edge highlighting black, my favorite thing to do. I'm getting through it. I need to hurry up and try to get them done, hopefully by the end of this weekend, so I can get started on the Ambot, because Cinco de Necro is fast approaching, my friend.
That it is. I was just talking with Dylan today about travel arrangements to get down there and all that stuff, so we should be showing up Friday pretty early in the day so we can get maximum times for chill hangs.
Yes. Well, I looking at my schedule and looking at how much time I'm going to be painting, I do not think I'm going to get much else other than the Ambot done. I'd like to get another 5 Orlocks in, but that's just probably not going to happen. If I have extra time, I'll probably do Slate Mardana just for funsies, and maybe get that dog done too. Might be able to do all 3 of them at once, but you
could you could make it work. So you haven't built the Ambot yet, right?
No, I actually need to. I split the Ambot with my friend Dylan, and he's got the instructions.
All right. So when my local
listeners,
Dylan,
if you want to take pictures of your Ambot instructions and send them to our email account, contact at 40kbadcast.com, because I might need help.
Well, you could do that, or myself, like Ozymandias, has done it 15 minutes ago. I took a bunch of pictures of the instructions when Dylan and I split it, so I will send you those pictures. Suck it, listeners. I'm helping Dan. He's my friend. I saw him first. But yeah, I'll send those to you after we record.
Oh, suck it, listeners. What the fuck? All right, so what have you been working on? I imagine I've got, these highlights, they fucking take forever, and they're fucking intercessors, so they got a ton of edges. And I was a little I had a little hobby hangover after Adepticon for a couple of days, so I didn't get a ton of work done. But I've got to imagine at this point, with me steadily working through my 5 models, you've managed to produce 20 new models or something.
I haven't produced as much as I've reduced.
Whoa!
Yeah, I've been
zigging and zagging.
I got home and I'm like, man, I'm not going to need these like extra lieutenants and extra captains and extra shit. And I just been selling a bunch of stuff off lately, which has been, it's been nice. It's been a bit of a thing. I finished. Wow, it's been a while since in Hobby Progress because I'm looking at the things I have on my like finish list here, and I don't even remember when I finished them. I finished that Primaris Ancient like a while ago. Before
I haven't even seen pictures of that yet.
He should have been in the army shots I posted on Twitter a while ago, but it's kind of hard to see him among the sea of blue and weathering. I built 5 intercessors who are, primed right now. I'm working on 5 more, and similarly, like doing the edge highlights. I'm like, okay, I've got the Calgar blue, I've got the guy in my painting handle, I'm ready to go. I look up, I bring up a new podcast or whatever, and by the time I'm done highlighting, the podcast is over. It's like an hour of edge highlighting of just the base blue for each model.
Yeah,
which again, like it's. When you see the time click by like that, it's just kind of, I won't say it's depressing, but it's kind of like, okay, I now have a better understanding of what sort of an investment this army is and how much care I'm putting into it. Makes you feel a lot better about it.
No, I think it takes me probably about an hour to do the first layer of highlights, edge highlights on an intercessor.
It's why I'm really happy I'm just doing it over like a blue undercoat, because if I had to take another hour just to get the undercoat color down, I'd be SOL. But I did get a bunch of KR cases, so they actually all have somewhere to live. That's not on my desk, because while I do like being inspired by the Ultramarines of Macragge, I don't need them watching me while I'm working, as there's 1,000 points of them hanging out under my monitor. So they at least have somewhere to live now.
Hey, that's wonderful.
I was like, could I wait till Adepticon or Nova? And I'm like, I shouldn't wait till Nova because I want to bring them to Nova. So I should get cases before I go.
Are you going to bring Ultras to Nova?
I want to get 2,000 points and ready for Nova.
Holy shit.
And like they'll all fit into the cases, and I'll have room in my big old fucking massive adult child-sized suitcase to bring a few more carry-ons or a few more cases if I want to bring some knights too. So I'm going to have some Ultras in Nova. That is my decree.
We're going to have
at least 2,000 points.
Ultras versus Raven Guard in our Badcast beatdown.
It's going to be the battle of the edges, yeah.
Oh my God. That's incredible.
But I built a Zarbaj's Jits from my Adepticon swag bag and the Thorns of the Briar Queen, because I've had those lying around for a while. Because Peter and Kat were in town. And
let's transition to games played then. You can talk about that.
Sure. So we played a 4-player Warhammer Underworlds game. So Anne played as the Thorns of the Briar Queen. I took my little gobos. Peter had the Stormcast, who he had converted to be like Tomb King skeleton warriors. Ooh. And Kat had the Butt Dwarves, which Pete had also converted to be like Cyber Squat Slayers.
Extra butts.
And it went really well until all my goblins died in the first turn.
Excellent. Did they focus down your goblins?
Well, you don't really focus on your goblins as much as breathe near them, because pretty much every attack will kill them in one hit, which made me think like, that means a lot of the stratagems and cards that cause like 1 damage to your guys but do damage to other guys are worth doing, because your guys will die in 1 hit anyway.
Yeah.
And I loved how like tactical and positioning heavy the game was. And like I did this great thing like, right off the bat. I had my handler, like my squig handler, and a couple squigs like mob one of his dudes and just drag them down. And I played like 2 cards afterwards that gave me a bunch of victory points for it. And I never scored another victory point for the rest of the fucking game. But I loved how the positioning was so important, and how tactical it was, and how my deck was bad because it was just kind of random. So I was, on the back foot the whole time.
Well, you're new at it too.
Yeah, exactly. And Peter had this deck built around like basically he had this one dude he could just keep layering on relics on him until he could start just powering up like Goku and generating victory points and not doing anything and just standing there going like, and getting 4 victory points a turn.
That sounds like Stormcasts.
It's very Stormcast. And he just did that and wasted my gobos while Anne's ghost speed up Cat's Butt Dwarfs. And it was super fun. Like, it really was. I want to play a lot more of this game so I can actually like talk about it. And I think maybe like you and I should have like at some point find a time where it can be like, okay, you and I will play Blood Bowl for a round, and then you and I will play Shadespire for a round. And we can just kind of like talk about those games, and that'd be like a cool bonus thing, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's been my gaming and my hobby. So what about you?
Yeah, I went to Adepticon and played a bunch of games, and we already talked about that.
If only there was some way you could listen to almost exhaustive coverage of the games we played.
If you've got 2 hours to burn while you're painting or jogging or driving or something, then go ahead and listen to the Adepticast. We released it yesterday as we're recording on the 10th of April right now. So it is fresh, hot and fresh.
Mm-hmm. A hot, fresh, deep dish badcast.
Yeah, but I haven't played any games since Adepticon. I got back, didn't play any games last weekend, and I never play in the week. So that's a negativo for this guy.
All right. Well,
so as far as new stuff goes, though,
yeah,
it's been extremely light. There's one thing we haven't talked about from the Chaos release that is somewhat ongoing right now, and that's the Chaos Havocs.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't talked about those yet. I think we talked about the characters. Yeah, we did talk about the characters, but we really haven't talked about the Havocs too much. And I have this two things on my notes here. Chaos Havocs, a.k.a. now everyone will own 1 million rotor cannons.
Yes.
Because they're already sold out on rotor cannons.
That is one way
World.
to move old Forge World stock, yes.
And I just realized that rotor is a palindrome.
Yeah, like race car or taco cat.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Those are two facts.
Do with them what you will.
Yeah, so the Chaos Havocs, okay. I love the Chaos Havocs. I think that they are not only extremely cool models, but they have great rules, a super strong unit, and fucking rotor cannons are almost like 3 heavy bolters packed into one gun.
Yep.
But I think there's okay, let's talk about how great they are real quick. So the rotor cannons, they come with missile launchers, las cannon, and the Reaper auto cannon, I think. They might come with heavy bolter too. I don't know. But,
a lot of big guns. That's the takeaway. So you know what they are. They're Havocs.
Yeah, and they have rules where they can move and fire without penalty, which is really awesome, especially for rotor cannon arm ones, because rotor cannons are only 24-inch range, but they're strength 5, AP -1, damage 1, 8 shots per.
Every single Marine holding a rotor cannon or whatever it's called now is a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus.
No, it's crazy.
It's an extremely good weapon.
It's extremely crazy. So a squad of 5 Havocs, which is your minimum, and you can have 4 of them with the heavy weapons. 4 rotor cannons is 32 strength 5 AP 1 damage 1 shots.
Goodbye, orcs.
Yeah. So nice knowing you. I have to imagine, though, that the rotor cannon is coming in at kind of a hefty price tag.
I'd hope so.
I have no idea, but I would imagine it does. And Havocs are still just 1 wound models.
But they're T5.
Ooh, they are, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're a little chunkier than your typical Chaos Space Marine. So, like, one of my favorite things as far as just a design thing is with the old second ed Devastator Marines that they brought back in these 6th or 7th ed plastic Devastator Marines is they have these, like, stabilizer things in their legs that look kind of like crenellations on a castle.
Yep.
And I always thought those were extremely cool, but it was kind of bummed they didn't really do anything in game. It was just kind of like, oh, here's a little bit of extra whatever. And these Havocs kind of have the mutated version of that. That's even better, and I like that a lot. That's a really cool development of it. And also, with them being T5, it gives them that little boost in survivability without necessarily making them like compete with Obliterators or Terminators for that kind of durability and firepower level. But also being able to move and shoot, that's extremely good because you can camp out in a Rhino and jump out and heavy bolter or rotor cannon something away. They seem like a really good unit. And Marines with heavy weapons have always just been a very expensive eggs in one fragile basket sort of unit. So giving them that mobility and that little tick of extra durability, I think is going to be a thing that's going to make you see a lot more Havocs on the table.
I agree. Havocs jumping out of Rhinos is it could be a thing because you got to protect them, right? Or you got to get them into position to do as much damage as possible. So
I would say I'm very happy with my Iron Warriors right now. Very on brand.
Yeah. So Havocs, man, they're back. They're cool. I've said it before on this show. I love the fact that Chaos is getting a lot of bonuses, a lot of good stuff, a lot of good new models, a lot of good new rules. I like it when they're good.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody's got a Chaos Army, so I like it. I like to see them out there. Okay, well, as far as new stuff goes, that's just about it. There's not really a whole lot else to talk to. I'm sure we'll talk more in a couple of weeks when we come back. But let's move on to our question and answer segment. We make the call where you, the listener, send us important questions. We, the hosts, answer them. So, Campbell, are you ready for I got a good one here.
Oh, all right. Then I'm double ready. Yeah.
Okay. This one's from Doug T via email, and it reads, Which vehicle wins the 40k Demolition Derby?
Ooh. Okay.
Okay, we got to break it. We got to break it into categories first because some things are just not going to fucking like a Thunderhawk and a Sentinel aren't. That's different weight classes. Doesn't matter. So we've got track
like wrestling.
We can do ground based vehicles.
Okay.
We can do hover hover tanks and stuff.
All right.
Skimmers. Thank you, skimmers.
Yep.
And I don't think I don't really want to do flyers because they don't really ram into each other because that's not.
They
fun.
do. No, they do once.
We got and walkers. We should do walkers too. So walkers, ground-based vehicles, ground vehicles, and skimmers. So let's start with walkers. And I mean, are we talking super heavies here, or are we just talking regular walkers?
Let's not go super heavies because those will outclass everything. Eventually, everything's going to come down to Emperor Titan or whatever.
Right. Okay. So no super heavies. We're talking walkers, non-super heavy, non-Lord of War walkers. So
all right.
What do you think is our number one seed right off the bat?
Okay, so I've played a lot of Destruction Derby too, and I know that being like you have to be something aggressive. So just being like the Sentinel that's just going to be running around in circles out in the back, like it might survive the longest in a like pit of death Destruction Derby sort of thing. No guns, by the way.
No guns. This is all combat.
Yeah.
What about flamethrowers?
That's still a gun. They're still throwing flame.
I feel like we should allow flamers and combat weapons.
All right, I feel like you have a hidden agenda here.
I don't. I just think we should allow flamers and combat weapons.
How about this? Compromise. No flamers on Sentinels, but the Sentinels can have the chainsaws.
Okay, fine, whatever.
All right. Either way, they still lose.
Yes, no, they're at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, they're below kill.
Are we bringing in Carnifexes in here?
No, that's an animal. That's an animal.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, so I mean, if we're going with this, like walkers, I'd give it to the Redemptor Dreadnought because it is such a chunky lad. It's just going to bow over whatever runs into.
See, I'd give it to the Leviathan Dreadnought.
He has a better center of gravity. I'll be honest.
Yeah, he's a little lower. I mean, we say in football, low man wins, right? When you're blocking. So I feel like that one takes it. What about like a Wraith Lord? Too weedy, right? Not
Wraith Lord's too weedy. Yeah, if a Dreadnought bowls into that, it's like weak little ankles are gonna snap just like a Crisis Suit's ankles would.
What about Gorkanauts?
Ooh, Gorkanauts. You can't knock a Gorkanaut over.
Oh man.
I think if it comes straight up to like battle of like bashing into each other, a Gorkanaut.
I think it comes down to like Gorka/Morka knot versus a Leviathan. I think that's your number one and number two seed right there.
Right, because the Leviathan at least has an invuln.
And we're not and are we talking game turns or are we talking just like broad Destruction Derby terms?
I'm talking broad Destruction Derby terms.
Okay, great, perfect. Yeah,
because I don't know the rules to anybody.
Because I feel like the Gorkanaut's bigger, but the Leviathan Dreadnought is more solid.
Yeah, Gorkanaut's hollow. So yeah, Leviathan would just hit it like a wrecking ball. So I think we'll give it to the Leviathan, which is probably why I see them on so many tables.
Yeah, right. Well, they have storm cannons, 2 storm cannon arrays. It's like 48 shots or some bullshit. Okay, so the Leviathan Dreadnought wins the Walker category. So let's move to the Skimmer category.
Repulsor, hands down.
It's got to be the Repulsor, right? As far as skimmers go, that's the big fella.
Right, there's Eldar tanks. They're cute, but they're all splintery.
There's Tau tanks. I honestly think the Tau tanks would do better than the Eldar tanks in the Destruction Derby.
They're not that durable, though.
Oh no?
Yeah, they're not that durable.
Well,
like
we know it's not. We know it's not the Dark Eldar tanks.
No, or the Landspeeder. Or the Landspeeder Storm, which is the Jeep Wrangler of the Space Marine vehicle world. All right, every time I see like 4 people in a Jeep Wrangler, I'm like, they're all going to die. Every single time. Like, they're going to have a lot of fun, and they're all going to die. If they don't die on the road, they're going to go to a camp or a cabin in the woods, and a serial killer will kill them. I've seen this movie before.
Okay, hold up. We got to talk about this real quick. Are you familiar with Natter Days?
I'm not sure I am.
Okay, it's this drink by the people that do like Natural Light. No, not National Bohemian, but Natural Light, where it's this drink. It's like a sweet drink. It's almost like it's a malt beverage. It's a sweet malt beverage. It's got alcohol. It's like 4.5% alcohol. It comes in this like very like retro looking pink fading to yellow can.
All right.
And they're like sweet. And they're called Natter Days, and they're light alcohol content, and they're beach drinks basically. It's like the people that do the Natural Light were like, we're just gonna make beach juice. And I had one at my friend's because because you mentioned Jeep Wranglers, and we're way off topic right now. But I had one, and that made me think of like Jeep. That's like when you go to the beach, you pile on your buddy's Jeep Wrangler, right? No roof, no doors, no shirt,
no responsibilities,
no shoes. No problem. Yeah, and you got a bunch of these natter days in there, and you're just getting trashed on malt liquor. Oh, God, I can't wait for the summer.
Thank you for preaching the Church of Natter Day Saints to me.
Listeners, if you've had any experiences, please write in. Okay, so we've got the Repulsor winning in the skimmer category because, of course, it's the biggest, it's the heaviest, it's the large boy.
Yeah.
All right, and then I think this is let's get to the good one.
Yeah, this is the crowded category, but also the one where I think there's the most opportunity for swinginess.
All right, and this is the ground vehicle 40K Destruction Derby. Number 1 seed right off the bat. You know it, the Land Raider.
See, my competitor to that one is Battle Wagon with a Def Rolla.
Ooh, the Def Rolla.
Not as durable as the Land Raider, but nothing in its front arc is going to not get mulched.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, Lehman Russ is in there too. The humble Lehman Russ has got to be counted. I mean, the Hellhound. Let's not count the Hellhound out, because when the Hellhound goes up, the fucking Hellhound takes somebody with it.
Yeah, but you do have to survive a destruction derby to win it. Going up in a fireball half the time is not really conducive to surviving.
Okay. What about legacy vehicles like the Battle Fortress and stuff? Or I guess that could be like a
that's
Lord of War.
Closing in on a super heavy.
Yeah, okay. So I think the Land Raider takes it. Land Raider is the pinnacle of Imperial transport options.
How about the Land Rover Crusader? Because that's the one that explodes things when it rams into it.
Oh, it does have bombs on the front.
Has the frag launchers.
Oh my
I think
God.
that's the comfortable middle ground between the durability of a Land Raider and the offensive capability of having a giant road roller in the front of your tank. Is having bombs in the front of your tank.
Okay, so the Land Raider Crusader, you think?
I think the Land Raider Crusader.
Man,
not just because I use it in every single army list.
All Space Marine vehicles, Land Raider Crusader, the Repulsor, and the Leviathan Dreadnought are our champions.
Yeah.
Wow. So the Space Marines, as a general rule, win the 40K Destruction Derby. I thought this was going to go to the Orcs.
Well, think of it this way, too. Space Marines are kind of an army built around being elite. So, like, their regular line battle tanks are going to be the most durable ones in theory.
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right. I think the ramshackle way that the Orc vehicles are constructed are going to go against them in this.
I agree.
All right, well, there you have it. We're experts, and we've made the call. So the winners of the 40K Destruction Derby are the Space Marines. And if you've got a problem, let me quote Campbell here and say, suck it, listeners.
And you can suck it, listeners, to contact at 40kbadcast.com.
Yeah, suck it all day. All right, here we go. Let's get back. Let's get into the actual show here. And I want to introduce our first segment, and it is an interview that we recorded at Adepticon with the man himself, our ham dad, Carl Tuttle of the Independent Characters podcast, which is by far just about the best 40K podcast out there. And man, this was a great interview, Campbell. I'm really excited to share it with everybody because we got Carl to say bad words.
Yes, we did. My ears tingle the first time I hear him said the F word. It was very, very strange.
All right, well, listeners, we're going to let you get into it. So here it is, our interview with Carl Tuttle. Okay, gang, welcome back to the 40K Badcast. And we are here at Adepticon. It is Saturday night. And Campbell, we have quite an August guest here with us in this conference room at the Renaissance Schaumburg, and it's Carl Tuttle himself, the Independent Characters. Carl, how are you feeling tonight?
I feel pretty good. Thank you so much for having me on.
I would say you're the independent character himself.
It has been too long coming, so thank you so much for having me on. We talked about this before. We talked about getting together before, so I'm glad we finally did.
So this is actually a very special moment for me because when I got back into the hobby, and one of the things I needed was something to do while I painted. There was a couple of months where I didn't do anything, where I was just, painting with silence or whatever. And then somebody
highlighting.
Edging in silence.
Edge highlighting, aided only by your own thoughts, sounds miserable.
In the dark.
I'd feel, no.
Okay, well, then somebody on the Something Awful forums pointed me in the direction to the Independent Characters podcast. And since then, I have listened. That was in I want to say the 60s or 70s. Yeah.
Of the show, not the decade.
Of the show.
Thank God.
Yeah. Of the show.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you at right now?
Carl, how old are you?
I think we're 184 or 5 or something like
yeah.
that. I have to look every time we go to them. And I keep going, we're drawing closer to 200. And then I'm like, Life After the Cover is already beyond. Like, at one point we were neck and neck. Now they're like 250 something. I'm like, man.
Yeah, we've been
quality,
doing
not
this
quantity.
for like.
It's about quality. That's the way I see it. It's kind of U.S. versus Soviet type situation.
I'm getting excited because we're going to hit 50 soon. This is probably going to
I
come out
remember
in
when I hit
49, and I'm very excited about that. But independent characters came in a point where I was like really getting back into the hobby. I was doing a lot of painting. I was trying to get a Imperial Guard army ready for Nova Open. So I had a lot of painting time. I was also single and lived by myself.
Yeah,
so
that helps. That
a little
lot.
bit. Yeah, it was nice to hear other people's voices. At night. Right.
Yeah.
So the independent characters was a driving force for the hobby for me for a long time, and I'm very, very much excited to be talking to you on our show.
I'm flattered. Honestly, I'm not that exciting to talk to.
Well, you're among friends here.
So we asked you here today because we wanted to get a little bit of perspective from you. And first, you've been in the hobby for a long time, and you've been a public figure in the hobby for a while.
Right.
And we're here at Adepticon. And one of the greatest things about Adepticon that I like so much is that it's a lot more social than Nova Open.
Yeah, Nova is very cliquey for better and for worse, because while you'll form these very strong relationships with the people you're gaming with, you're almost exclusively forming relationships with those people. So like I can call pretty much anyone who's played in the Nova narrative a friend, or at least a very friendly acquaintance. I can't say I know anyone from outside that event.
Oh,
No,
that's interesting. That was not the impression I got from the way you guys talked about it before. That's it. I'm canceling my trip. I'm done.
It's a bit insular, but it is
Good
very
thing Mike
welcoming.
doesn't listen to this, because otherwise he'd be mad.
Our running joke is that Mike Brandt, who is a groomsman at my wedding, I remind everybody,
All right.
isn't allowed to come on our podcast until he listens to an episode of our podcast.
Never gonna happen.
But it's literally never going to happen. So we don't have to worry about that too much. Yeah, Nova is a little bit different because Nova, it's a multi-day event, and it's a narrative progressive storyline.
Yeah.
This is for us too. We're talking like if you're in the GT, it's obviously different. But
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
No,
right.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. That's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is you go into that event knowing that that's what you're doing. Whereas here at Adepticon, you don't really have, the only multi-day events that you have are these competitive events that don't really have a narrative purpose.
Right.
And what makes it interesting about Adepticon is it frees you up in the other times to just go around.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, to flit between different social circles I have within the hobby. Yeah. And as somebody who's been in the public eye of the hobby for a long time, you've got to know everybody here.
No. I mean, there's 6,000 people here. I mean, there's no way I know everybody.
Well, okay. Thank you for answering my question literally, Carl, because that's totally what I meant.
But no, I mean, to a point, there's sometimes where I feel really bad because people will come up to me who have met me at previous Adepticons, and they're like, "Remember we met last year?" And I'm like, "Oh, not really. I'm sorry, but I don't."
Full disclosure, I literally just did this with a Games Workshop employee as we were waiting to like get the stuff together for recording. I literally was like, "Yeah, we met last year," and it was clearly like, "Oh,
And he was like, "Yeah, I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them all."
He's one that came up to me and was like, "You like the show?"
It's fanception.
But no, I mean, I often I have a friend who used to work at Forge World. He was the head of customer support at Forge World, and back in the days when we were covering stuff in Imperial Armor and those kinds of things, Alan Bly and I were chatting, and he kind of introduced the two of us, Alan and myself. And this friend, one time we were chatting on Facebook or whatever, and he's like, "Man, I feel like I'm talking to a rock star." And I mean, look, you guys are running a show. You have listeners that, people would be flattered to come on your show and speak their mind, right? Or get a chance to hear their name mentioned on the show. And to you and I, that may seem kind of silly because we're just like guys talking into a microphone right now, holding them up like mic stands because we don't have any mic stands here. But to people, I guess I don't understand it either. He was like, "I feel like I'm talking to a rock star." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You work at Forge World, dude. I'm the one talking to the rock star," right? So it's weird that there's this distance between people. But at Adepticon, you get to close that gap and you get to meet people face to face and have a conversation. We were all just eating pizza and a guy came up and was like, wearing an Ices t-shirt.
Yeah.
That, first off, that's weird for me to see people actually wearing the shirt a year later. When I was selling them, it was fine.
Yeah.
But it was great to meet him. And he's somebody on our group that I've chatted with from time to time. And
Right.
I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. I remember when the guys used to run Imperial Voxcast mentioned my name on their show before I was doing a show, because I gave them a review and they read the review. I was like, oh, they just said my name, And I thought, wow, how exciting, and they maybe had 3,000 listeners at the time, I'm guessing. Our show has grown significantly since then. A lot of people here do know me. They know Justin and Adon. They don't really know Jody, but they're now getting to meet Jody because he's here. And
I met Jody for the first time tonight.
Yeah,
and
he rules.
I was just saying before we started recording, like, if he and I lived in the same city, we'd probably be hanging out all the time.
The dude he's a teacher, so he's well-spoken. He puts a lot of thought into what he's saying.
He likes Blood Bowl.
He likes Blood Bowl. I mean, he's a genuine, honestly, the four of us, if Jody were here, all share a lot of the same values. And so I think that's why we all get along. So I guess that's a long way of answering your question of, do I know everybody? No, but I feel like when I come here, as I walk down the hall, I'm like, hey, you and you and you and you. And, I was trying to talk to my wife going back to the room, and I got stopped like 3 times, and she keeps laughing every time I get stopped on the phone. And I'm like, oh, I really got to go. I'm on the phone with my wife, and people are very polite about it. I've never had a bad experience.
That's something about Adepticon that is really cool. And then everybody in the morning has got somewhere to go, because that's when the events start. And that's when, people are, well, if they had, like me on Thursday, if they had too many drinks the night before, then all they can do is focus on getting to the place where they need to be, because literally anything else is impossible. But when Adepticon, when the light goes down, when the lights come up
when
in
it
the
gets
city
romantic.
by the bay, and by the bay, I mean that pond kind of like across the way, and those hostile geese that we had to fight that first year. People sort
I
of
forgot about that. The attack geese.
people sort of like they open up in like everybody's hanging out, because Adepticon, like this hotel is not near anything in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's sort of in the middle of the suburbs.
It's
and
in between a highway and IKEA, and I think a separate IKEA on the side of another highway.
there's probably at least 2 IKEAs here.
Council
and
of
a
IKEA.
lot of like very bleak Soviet architecture.
So everybody's here, and everybody shares the hobby or shares something adjacent to the hobby.
Yeah.
And it comes into like we all become part of a family almost, where we all know what we're into. We all have a way to talk to one another.
Yeah.
And we can just hang out and talk, and we're stuck here.
Yeah.
Because it's the middle of suburbia.
Well, I mean, if I could add to that, I mean, that's one of the things I love about this hobby. And one of the things I was looking for when I was actively looking for a hobby, and I've mentioned this, I don't know how many times on my show, but I wanted to get into radio control race car stuff. And I found the community in my area to be very off-putting, not friendly at all. I got into this hobby because I was looking for we ran RPG games. People get married, have kids. We kind of came back to, well, gosh, I need something I can play with 1 or 2 other people. I picked up this hobby and found I'm not somebody who is satisfied with just you and I just play all the time. Like, I want to be a part of the bigger picture. And the podcast was kind of one of those ways that I thought, I can get engaged more with the community. I did have a negative run in early in my hobby career here with a clique, as we talked about.
Yeah.
It wasn't at Nova. It was a local thing to me, but we had a run in with a clique who, when I approached them, they clearly knew the tournament organizers. And when I approached them, introduced myself, they were like, yep. And then turned their back, like not even figuratively, literally turned their backs to me and kind of shut, like there was like this physical, like shut you out of the conversation piece. And I thought, man, you know what? I am never going to do that to somebody. And now my show's very popular. I mean, I'm not saying that but it's popular. I mean, and so you've witnessed it. Like, you saw the guy come up, like I immediately stand up, acknowledge the person. Hey, what's your story? What are you about? can I get a picture with you? You know, make them feel included, because I would have wanted that when I was trying to get into the hobby or trying to engage with somebody that I'm on the same wavelength as. And I assume most of my listeners are on our same wavelength, which is positivity and fun and just enjoying the hobby.
Well, I can guarantee that the hosts of the 40k Badcast, and I would hope that the listeners too, openness and inclusion in the hobby is very, very important.
Super important to me. Yeah.
Like, everybody's welcome. We want like just coming up and talking to people and saying, hey, yeah, and it doesn't have to be like coming up talking about the show. It doesn't have to be like, hey, I like your army. Hey, I like your shirt. Hey, I like your Naruto headband.
You and Jody were just talking about comic books.
We had a long conversation about comic books.
I was also talking with you about comic books separate from you.
Yeah, no, Jody's fantastic. This should be the,
you know what? Should we just get Jody in here?
Yeah. So openness and inclusion, I think, is one of the hallmarks of the good times that people have in this hobby, where we can all be a part of a group together.
And I think that's intrinsic to the health of any community, no matter what kind of. I think that's intrinsic to the health of any community. Okay, all right.
Do you want it like at the bottom of your chin?
Okay.
I would never edit this.
I'm editing the shit out of this. I edit the fuck out of our podcast.
I try to be very.
I know, unlike yourself. I think having openness and inclusivity is essential to the growth and sustainment of any sort of community, no matter what interest it's about, no matter what group it's centered around, or what have you.
At the risk of diverging a little bit
on this show,
on that particular point,
it never happens.
On that particular point, though. You know, it's interesting how sometimes that gets turned around, where like somebody who is disruptive or outright destructive with, it's not just that they have a different opinion, it's that they are delivering a message antithetical to what you're trying to get across. Says, well, I thought you were about inclusivity. You know, how come you don't like my opinion? Because your opinion is destructive, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. And I find that gets turned around quite often, especially with a show like mine, where we're very much about, you know, we did an episode about female space marines, which is a lightning rod topic for some.
Do you want me to read you some comments from the episode where we called out actual factual fascists? 'Cause I can do that. I don't have it on my phone right now, but I can find them for you.
I found that, you know, I wasn't talking about changing lore, but I was saying, you know, now that you have the Primaris Marines, why could you not just simply say, well, the Primaris Project works on females as well? You know, they fixed whatever that
it's
problem
fiction,
was.
right?
Yeah, it's fiction.
You see female Stormcasts, and those models look freaking awesome.
Some of the best models in the range.
That artwork of the female Stormcast with the like mohawk kind of to the side, I love that picture. And so I just posit that question: why does that cause you? Well, they already have female. You know, looking at the demographics of my Facebook group, and my Facebook group is all about inclusivity. I've watched my 0.5% female, you know, marked as female, go up to 1.5%.
That's triple.
That is triple, though.
Sure, but that's still way far.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways.
And just to talk on the inclusivity thing here, one of the things I did notice this year at Adepticon, especially when looking at the Shadespire group, lots of females here this year.
Yeah.
Lots more than I've seen before.
No, this is a far more diverse Adepticon than I remember from 2017. And
it's interesting that Shadespire is drawing a lot of.
It turns out when you make a game that's very accessible and you don't have quite the same level of gatekeeping intrinsic to not just the system but to the community, anyone can play it.
Very interesting. I was pleasantly surprised to see that, and I've been, you know, I'm very fortunate to see that here. No, I'd like to see more of it.
My dad's been in this hobby since the 70s in one form or another, and it was exclusively the domain of like old men. There's that great old video of Peter Cushing, where he's like pushing around these handmade Napoleonic figures and taking long drags from his cigarette while like an incredibly droll like transatlantic accent is like, these men, they gather in organizations and pubs around the country and they decide to play games with their miniature soldiers. And it's like, and again, like H.G. Wells' Little Wars, where it's you know, it's a game for boys and particularly intelligent young girls, and it's like, that shit sucks ass. And the fact that I've been able to see that hobby go from, it was almost identical to that in the early 90s when I joined up with this and become a hobby and a community where people of all sorts, like all colors, all races, all religions and so on, are welcome. It may not by every single person, unfortunately, yet, but overall, like, that's incredible.
Agreed.
It's wonderful that we get to experience that in real time.
Yeah,
it really is.
All the while that's happening, the hobby's only getting like bigger and better for the rest of us too, because rising tide raises all boats, you know?
Yeah.
It certainly fucking does. All right, so let's pivot here and talk a little bit specifically about Warhammer 40,000. And Carl is a...
Are we going to talk about how good Campbell is at it now?
Fuck.
Actually, that is a wonderful... you know what? Let's digress a little bit.
Okay.
So from our planned idea here and talk about Campbell for a minute. So listeners, Campbell brought his Black Templars to Adepticon.
My meta-busting small marine Black Templars.
Yeah, and he can you talk about your record real quick in the organized play events we've done?
So first off, I played in the Gallant GT, which GT is in the name, so it's Grand Tournament. And I went 3-0. And I got max battle points in at least one of my games. And at the end of it, I got a fucking medal because I won the
Because you also got max cool boy points.
He was the overall winner, is what he's saying. And then, Camppat, what happened
What happens when you're the overall winner?
They give you a very nice medal.
Oh, okay.
And they...
and a pat on the back.
A nice pat on the back. They might parade you around in a chair if you really feel like it.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And then in the friendly, Campbell, how did you do in there?
Oh, so in the friendly, it was a lot different. In my first game, I also bulldozed.
Do you hear his fucking voice? Do you hear his fucking smug tone in his fucking voice? Yeah. Him and his fucking Black Templars. It's awful. It makes me feel filthy.
I played against that freaking brutal list that you keep
That brutal list with 20 on-foot Crusaders. Not Land Rover Crusaders, the guys with knives.
We'll get to this point.
So yeah, in my first game, I played against Guy Richard with his Blood Angels that were beautiful, and I buried them. And then I played 2 games afterwards where I can't say I did as well, but I was on Orange Team, and by there, but for the grace of God, go I. Orange Team happened to win, and what do you know? I got one more medal.
And as we know, being on the winning team at the friendly and getting a medal is 100% legitimate.
Is
says
a
the guy
true indication of
who
skill.
2 years ago did that exact same thing after getting 6 total points over 3 games.
I got 10 total points.
What's that other thing around your neck?
Oh, well.
That one, don't get too upset about that one.
I'm
all
not.
right? Because that one was legitimately hard won. Not because of his cheater Black Templar list, but because we went to the 40K trivia contest, and honestly, it
But
wasn't...
the way he told it, the way he told it to me was at the end.
I carried it home. I carried that fucker home.
No, he did. It was like in Little Giants. Remember the fucking movie Little Giants? The annexation of Puerto Rico, right? Like the fucking ball touched everybody's hands, right? Maybe not my hands. Maybe not our friend James, real James with a Z. Maybe not our hands, but like everybody else's hands. It was in there. Specifically, I want to give a shout out to Craig Sniffen and British Patrick,
the War Master himself,
who I don't know Patrick's last name, but he's just British Patrick, who. They were really the ones who carried us to that victory. There were only 2 sets of footprints, really.
Man, I will tell you what, like the questions that you told me they asked, I was like, I don't know.
They were not easy.
Right now, I am not wearing my medals because, for one, my neck is actually strained from wearing 3 medals for every game I've played today.
I also told him that you couldn't wear them because they make too much fucking noise.
They make so much
in the
fucking
recording
noise.
thing.
It's like the same reason you put a bell on a cat, like so you know where it is. That's me with those medals.
In this case,
everyone knows where I am.
It's a bell to let you know how successful the cat was.
That also,
and it's fucking terrible nerd hobbies.
That's also heavy enough to add like 10% to that cat's body weight.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna move on. We were gonna talk about some serious shit, but we're throwing that out the window. We're already 20 minutes into this interview. So, Carl, I have a couple of questions for you. My first question is: defend Lorgar. Lorgar is a complete piece of shit. We all know that he's a fedora-wearing fat asshole who never leaves his basement. So why are you a word bearer's enthusiast when you know that Lorgar sucks so fucking bad?
Okay, so. To a degree, I'll agree. Lorgar does pretty much suck.
A strong defense.
Yeah. I'm not going to so much defend his kind of whiny attitude as to say in Aurelian, he does kick some serious ass there. He is still a Primarch. He may not be the top Primarch in terms of
literally anything.
In terms of, well, I would argue he's probably the top Primarch in terms of faith.
The look on your face is betraying the fact that you think that's a really important fucking category to be top in.
Well, if you read Black Legion, actually before Black Legion, you read No, it was Black Legion by Aaron Dembski Bowden.
It's a good book.
Yep.
Incredible.
Word Bearers won.
They did. That cannot be.
The Word
that cannot
Bearers
be
won.
denied.
No, you know what? I agree.
Seriously,
Actually,
I'm sorry. That was a very combative way to ask you a question about what you're enthusiastic about. But I'd love to.
I'm not so much enthusiastic about Lorgar. I'm enthusiastic about the Word Bearers as they are the founders of the heresy. Like they're completely vile. I love the fact that they consort with demons. I love the fact they're consorting with chaos. I like the concept of, not in the terms of Horus, but in terms of heresy, like as a villainous type thing. I think that when they are written well, like when they're written by Aaron Dembski Bowden or something like that, and they're not mustache twirling,
Exclusively when they're written by Aaron Dembski Bowden.
almost exclusively, I find them to be dark and vile and horrific. And the betrayal that they put into Horus. I mean, Horus is tricked into this whole thing. And that's one of the things, talking with Aaron, he'll say, Horus was tricked into this. Abaddon's going to this eyes wide open and playing the game. That's why I'm just saying, like, I like the fact that they, as a group, are just pure evil. Like they fall to evil very quickly, almost willingly. In fact, willingly, and are honestly the starters of the entire heresy. Like I love that fact. I think I just find them to be completely evil, and they make great villains.
It sounds like a go big or go home for bad guys kind of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, look,
like if you're going to be bad, you might as well be the worst.
They're the ones that are starting the possessed. They're starting to merge demons with Space Marines, and the Galvor Bach come out of that. I mean, that's pretty horrific, right? They're willingly allowing some of these things to take them over. I mean, I don't know. I just find that kind of stuff like super creepy, so it makes great villain stuff.
No, I'm actually a big fan of that answer because the Word Bearers for me have always been a very interesting color scheme right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like when the first time I saw the 3rd edition Space Marine Codex and they had those John Blanche illustrations of all the different types of Chaos Space Marines. Word Bearers were in there and they had the deep red, they had the silver.
A little bit of black to them.
Yeah, but they had the burning demon face on the standard.
Yeah.
And I was very like, that's a very strong categorization.
It's a statement.
Yeah, it's a really, really strong way to be like, we're bad guys.
Yeah.
And I get the idea that they're...
Oh, and I'd also argue Dan Abnett wrote them really well in No Fear.
I mostly remember them in No Fear being hurtled into space by Gilman punching them in zero gravity.
Well, that's great.
And that ruled. I like that part.
But in that book, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Dan, but in that book, there's the part where... the part I love in that book is where there's like this... The Ultramarines set a time, right? A time that the event occurred. And the book starts at negative certain days, right before it. And it kind of counts, and it's a really, really great technique to like, it's coming. And so it counts down to this point, and then everything counts up after that. Yeah. And that point is where this Word Bearer's talking to this Ultramarine.
Well, they're like old friends, too.
They're old friends.
And that was like, I just felt like reading that, I just felt so tense, and it felt kind of tragic too, because like, he doesn't really seem like he wants to kill him, but he's still gonna do it.
Yeah. And the Ultramarine just cannot conceive of this kind of deception. And so that to me, like he talks about what would be the worst betrayal, and the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about, God, and I just thought it was a great scene. So anyway,
that's like broaching a question to someone, just being like, hey honey, what would you do if I bought a horse and I did it like right an hour ago? What would you do? Just hypothetically,
just hypothetically, what would you do?
Just for laughs.
The horse heresy.
I'm stupid. No. I'm glad our ham dad could bring a dad joke into the podcast.
Right fucking there. That's a great answer, Carl. Sorry, I was I was super combative at the beginning of that. So I'm sorry.
I don't think.
But I'm gonna up the ante here and increase the combativeness with one of the favorite memes of all of Warhammer fandom is Magnus did nothing wrong. And you're a big Thousand Sons fan.
Yeah.
And your current project in 40K is Thousand Sons.
Yeah.
And
Colin's current project.
I was going to say after our game today, there's a lot fewer than 1,000 of them left.
Hey-o.
There's 0 on the table is what was left.
No, it's okay. They teleported back to their
That's what
spaceship.
Armin
right?
did.
Yeah. Okay.
Just as each planned.
So I feel like there's an argument to be made specifically about Magnus and the Emperor, where that the Emperor was like, "Hey, Magnus, just don't fuck with sorcery." Just for like a little bit. Not even, well, he didn't say for a little bit, like it's banned forever, but just don't fuck with sorcery. And Magnus was like, not only said, nah, I'm gonna fuck with sorcery, Magnus was like, I'm gonna fuck with sorcery by literally tunneling through all of your wards and breaking into your bullshit. And yes, he was warning the Emperor about the heresy, but he also broke through what has been revealed since then into a scheme that the Emperor was trying to tunnel into the webway to get through the warp, so the humanity that didn't have to deal with the warp travel anymore. And I'm not a huge fan of everybody following the rules all the time. As
Should not be
you
surprising
you
to
guys are probably like, okay, yeah. But Magnus, his big hallmark as a character to me is that he always thought that he was right.
Yep.
And he only very rarely was.
Right.
At least by my estimation. So I'm curious as to ask, like, what do the Thousand Sons, a not even a legion anymore, a group of disparate war bands who are literally controlled every move by sorcerers because their legion died and was animated as suits of armor. Like, what draws you to that in 40K?
Okay, so a couple things. And I've had this argument with multiple people, and this is just my opinion on it. And so people are going to disagree with that.
I mean, this is an exercise for people, our listeners, to get to know you and you to express yourself in perhaps ways that you don't want to express yourself on your podcast.
Here's what I would
Which you can say, Carl. You can say fuck on our podcast.
I already said fuck boy once. We were upstairs when we were upstairs eating pizza. Somebody was like, I couldn't believe the first time I heard you swear. For the record, I swear a lot in person.
Sure, he does.
The minute a microphone comes on, though, it just switches off.
Yeah, like the moment I met you, like for the first time, you were like, "How the fuck are you?" And I was like, "Are my ears tingling? Are my ears tingling? Is everything okay?"
So okay, let's first talk about Magnus did nothing wrong. I completely disagree. I think Magnus absolutely did something wrong. It wasn't breaking into the thing, although that is not so much about him doing something wrong knowledgeably. Like he didn't know. He came to try to warn. There's no way he could have known, right? It's not about him using sorcery when he was told not to. I don't think that's where he went wrong. Where he went wrong was even before there, where he started consorting with the powers of the warp, thinking he knew more than they did, thinking he was getting one over on them, and then turning around and realizing, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I have been outwitted and duped. And it's the hubris that he had that really brought him down. And so I would argue his hubris is what he did wrong. Right. Now, I mean, to a degree, he was kept in the dark by the Emperor. You could say that.
Yeah, he didn't know he was arguing with an actual god.
Right. So, but he didn't know really what he was arguing with or dealing with. And so he made some assumptions and he was wrong. That's where I think Magnus went wrong. That's my take on it. Some people disagree. What appeals to me about the Thousand Sons is the tragedy of that particular group. They have a massive defect to them, which causes them to spawn out.
The flesh change.
Yep.
Yeah.
You see Ahriman repeat Magnus's hubris, repeat his same mistakes, like father, like son. Ahriman, I can fix this. After failing to try to stop it, tries the rubric of Ahriman, making things even worse, and yet still hasn't learned his lesson.
Unimaginably worse.
Still has not learned his lesson. I can fix this. All I need to do is get into the Black Library. The Eldar have the secrets there, and I'll fix it then. He still isn't getting the lesson, right? And so that's one of the things I really dig about him. I think the thing that I really like about Ahriman in particular, other than that, is, have you ever read Damon Fugue?
The old Ben Counter comic book?
Yeah.
I actually haven't.
You should check it out. I can actually send you a copy of it if you want to borrow it.
I would very much like to.
There's like Armin actually has a very small part in it towards kind of the end, and he's really portrayed as like this kind of almost like Darth Vader villain type thing.
It's from the 90s, right?
Yeah, it's a little, but I kind of dug like where they were going with it. I think I love him as a sorcerer. I love the idea that he's super powerful. I love, I just kind of dig it. It's okay that he's fallible, right?
Yeah.
And he hasn't learned his lesson. And that's why whenever I lose to Campbell, I just go, well, he still hasn't learned.
I do admire and relate to a character whose entire arc is fucking up, thinking I can fix this and fucking up worse, and continuing to fuck up like it's an episode of Arrested Development.
Kind of like my life.
That's a great point, actually, because like the Thousand Sons are obviously the most inhuman legion of chaos. Yet the reason that they exist is because of the most human of problems, because you think you know better than anything else.
Right. And also I like the idea of the automatons, and again, Aaron does a great job of writing them.
Is that because when all your troops die, you don't have to feel bad about them? On the tabletop,
That's
Carl?
why I would play Tyranids. I don't feel bad about them, but then the minute the aspiring sorcerer dies, I'm like, damn it.
That's a smite. That's a smite, and it's gone.
I love the
It's a
concept.
smite, and his name is Paul.
And if you've read the Armin series by John French, like I'm a huge fan. Like there's some great portrayals of it, and there's some great portrayals of like psychic warfare. The thing John French writes really well are like visual scenes. Like there's a scene where they're trying to summon this demon and kind of talk to it. And, normally when you think of like sorcery and wizards, like, oh, you have a pentagram on the ground and you talk to him or what, I don't know, whatever. He depicts this scene where they're in this space station with no gravity. And while they're trying to do this summoning, they have like this pentagram thing and there's such candles and all that, but they're floating in like a 3-dimensional type pentagram. And he's using like his psychic force to hold the candles in place while he, depicts. And I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I'd never considered it in like a 3-dimensional type of, I don't know. It's just stuff like that I really dig. But then he writes psychic combat scenes like super good too. Super good.
John French has definitely got his shit together. All right. Well, we're going to actually accelerate this conversation a little bit, and we're going to dive into what I think our listeners are most excited.
Now you see why my shows are so long.
And we're going to play a quick round of Fuck, Marry, Kill.
Okay.
Primarch's edition. And I don't want to get into what we've chosen in the past because our listeners are certainly familiar with that.
Of course.
I listen to your show. I'm familiar with it.
I'd expect him to have listened to all 48 or so episodes before listening to this one.
It's required listening.
Yeah.
But Carl, this is a question that we pose to every guest, and you are certainly not immune from this. So please give us your fuck, your marry, and your kill as far as 40k Primarchs go.
The fuck, this is a hard one. Like,
I don't think
no
so.
pun intended.
I mean, all right.
Okay, if you look at Fulgrim, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of go, what am I going to get here? I think that, that's probably the one.
I think the answer is, what aren't you going to get here, and where aren't you going to get it?
Right.
All right.
Which can be frightening, but maybe a little exciting. So I'm going to go that one.
All right. I will say I have a
Fulgrim for fuck, really?
Yeah, that's the same as Doug. That was War Boss Doug's answer too.
Yeah,
in Table War.
yeah.
I will say I have had my original one was Lehman Russ for obvious reasons, but the con
He's obsessed with a monomarth. Is what obvious reasons mean.
So in the latest Heresy book, they had some art of the con, and he looks an awful lot like Jason Momoa. And that's I didn't want to color your perception by throwing that out there first. I know how you feel about DC superhero movies, at least of a certain ilk. So I just thought I'd at least get that out in the air for you.
Yeah. All right. So that's probably they're out there. Kill probably.
Well, no,
and Mary.
Let's save kill for last.
Okay.
I like kill for last.
All right, Mary.
Yeah, let's get who you marrying.
It's got to be Gilliman.
Gilliman.
I like this guy.
Yeah,
that was your answer.
That's my answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Gilliman is he's dependable. Mm-hmm. He's going to be there when you need him.
Yep.
And he's got a plan. So
he's got a plan for everything.
He'll take care of me.
He's specifically got a retirement plan. 40k Gilliman. That's interesting you say that, because I'm listening. I'm like halfway through Dark Imperium right now, and I get the feeling that 30k Gilliman certainly had a plan.
Yeah.
With the whole Imperium Secundus and being like, hey, I can do this better. Maybe a little bit of Magnus in there. But 40k Gilliman, I think, is just rolling with it. He's just shooting from the hip.
Yeah, he is. But listen, if anybody can correct a course, it's that guy. If you look at, and again, I'll talk about No Fear. Like the Ultramarines are on their back heels for the first 3/4 of that book, but due to their rigid training, the following of
he's like Dorn could never do it because Dorn is my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Dorn doesn't adapt to the people he has to work
inflexible.
with. Yes. Well, Gilliman, he's going to be like, oh, you work in this style, you work in this style. Like we can bring this together.
We're gonna make a plan with the tools we have.
Right. And Dorn is out there lamenting about how come I don't have the tools I want.
to Dorn, every problem is a nail, so you use a hammer, right?
Hey-o.
Thunder hammer.
To Gilliman, he's like, what do I got here? I got a bunch of screws. I got some nails. I got some hinges. What am I going to do with all this? I'm going to make a coconut radio like the professor on Gilligan's Island.
Though that being said, Sigismund, the way Aaron Dembski Bowden writes him, is just about my favorite 40k character.
Yeah,
where he's just like, I've been waiting. Yep. I knew you would come back, and I'm here to kick your ass. And he doesn't. He dies.
He gets real close though.
But he gets so fucking close to killing Abaddon.
Nobody knows that.
Well, we do. We do. It's the fucking jabronis on the other side, but none of the Imperium knows that. Okay, so
nor do any of the people who were there except one.
So let's get into it. This with Kill. Who are you culling from the herd?
It's got to be Angron.
This is the second time we've heard Angron.
Yeah, he's so angry. He's so full of hate and anger, and I don't have time for that in my life.
Okay, so this is a much more pragmatic answer than the last time we got Angron as the kill answer.
Yeah, he just certainly I think like I'd be beaten a lot, and I don't want him in the house. He's got to go.
Okay. Well, last time we heard about Angron, it was a mercy killing.
Yeah,
that's an interesting way of looking at it. That's not the way I look at it, but yeah.
Yeah, like a mad dog situation.
Yeah, I could see that, but I wouldn't cry doing it.
I mean, well, like that was, there's specifically a part mentioned in the book, Aaron ADB's book about the Master of Mankind.
The ADB love fest continues.
Well, I mean, come on, we've got a guy, and the guy's real good.
He's amazing.
In Master of Mankind, when the Emperor references Angron and specifically doesn't care about his flaws,
he also references him by number.
Well, not 13, but whatever 13. Number his. Yeah. 16. Who cares? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Well, Carl, thank you for playing our game. Thank you for so much for coming on the show. If there's anything you want to plug real quick.
No, not really. Okay. You guys are kicking ass, and I really, really, really like it. Campbell and I met through Something Awful forums, and just like on a whim, I was like, hey, we're going to Europe, and you and I were getting along. I was like, if you're interested in going, you're welcome to come. And Campbell's like, sure. And I'm like, oh, shit, what did I just do? Who did I just invite to this thing? But we had a great time, and we've gotten along ever since. And since I met you, Dan, I mean, we get along great. I think, like I said, we're all on kind of the same page.
Our first experience ever was here at Adepticon in the bar. And it was me, you, Campbell, and Jeff.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
And they kept playing like pop
80s
music,
pop hits,
80s pop hits over the speakers. And then you and I were vibing to like all the songs.
Right.
They were like fucking Duran Duran.
Yeah, that's right.
And Jeff, well, Campbell wasn't, but Jeff was like, I fucking hate this song.
Jeff gets
Jeff's like, this song sucks. This song sucks too. This song sucks worse than the last two.
And then you were like, yeah, I think Campbell, I think I like this guy more than you. And I was like, yeah, of course you do.
But I remember you guys were talking about doing a podcast, and Campbell was kind of asking some questions about, what do you think about this? And I was like, whatever you do, find your own voice. Like, whatever you're going to do it different than everybody else. I think you guys have succeeded. Like, I'll be honest, like your show is quite literally the only show I listen to all the way through each time it comes out. I promote shows like Life After the Cover Stage because I think they do something very unique nobody else is doing. I think when they're on, like, they are some of the funniest guys I've ever heard. When they meander a little bit, I'm like, okay, I'm going to skip this now. But consistently, I listen to your show regularly. I very much enjoy it, and I want you to keep doing what you're doing, because the whole reason Jeff and I started a show was because we were like, we didn't like what was out there, and we thought, we can provide a different message, and I think we can do this better than what's going on right now. And whatever it's become. But we put out a show we thought we would want to hear. You guys put out a show I like hearing. So please keep doing what you're doing. That's the only thing I'd say.
Well, I hope you understand that I mean it when I said that means the utmost to me, and I think it does.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything much kinder you could say about her show.
It's fantastic. It's literally, I listen to every episode.
Well, thank you so much, Carl.
That's why I'm a Patreon supporter.
Hey,
you are. I have the receipts.
That's right.
And that's why, listener, you should be too.
That's right.
All right, Carl, thank you so much. It's been a
thank you for having me on.
absolute joy having you on the show.
Yep. We'll see you next year.
All right, Campbell, what did you think about that? Wasn't it fantastic?
It was. I'm really happy that we can give Carl's little podcast a boost by showcasing on our show. He really needs the increase in traffic. I'm sure it'll help him out.
Wow, that's hilarious. All right, well, let's move on and to our next segment where we are going to talk about what happens when the thrill is gone, like B.B. King. Campbell, the thrill is gone. And this time it's not about your relationship that you have, your personal relationship with your partner, but it's about the times when you're just kind of done with your army.
I mean, it is about a personal relationship, but it's a personal relationship with hundreds of tiny plastic spacemen.
Right. So this has happened to me. I mean, I
think it's happened to most players.
It happens to everybody, probably. You make an army, you play with your army, you get bored of your army, and then what do? So let's talk about it, and let's just go back and forth real quick with our little topics here, and we'll figure something out. So here's the first thing I'm thinking of ways to do is find fun ways to use your existing army. Like, I have a couple bullet points here. One of them is kill team. Like, okay, so you're not having a ton of fun with like my Grey Knights, my old Grey Knights army. I haven't tried it, but I'd be interested to try Grey Knights in a kill team. They actually seem like they'd be kind of gnarly.
Oh, yeah. It's not just about doing a different game with them, though. Like, you can do different things with the army itself, because every army has different builds or different variations of stuff, and you can always try new ones.
That's some of my next points. You can add some quote-unquote good units to your army. Let's say you've got an army going. Let's say you got a Space Marine army going, and you're like, man, I'm not winning a ton of games. I like my army. I'm starting to feel bad. Instead of abandoning this project completely, you could just start painting Hellblasters or buy and assemble some Hellblasters, and then boom, your army's suddenly good again because Hellblasters fucking rule. Or if you've got like a Dark Eldar homunculus coven army, and you're like, man, I'm just not doing. Expand it to include some Cabal units, maybe a bunch of Venoms and a Ravager full of Disintegrators or two. And then, boom, you're back into it. You're back right into your local meta or whatever, and you're having fun again. I think that's actually a great idea. If you've have a like you're talking about with your idea to get 2,000 points painted by Nova of your Primaris Ultramarines, you get that done, and you're like, I'm not really enjoying these guys too much. You could always take a Leviathan from Forge World and add it to your army
and win games again.
Yeah.
So
add the good units.
Yeah, well, we also benefit from playing armies that, we play Guard and Marines primarily between the two of us.
Yep.
And those have so many different options and ways to build an army.
Yep.
You can do, if you're doing Guard, my old Guard army is an infantry horde. And if I want to, I have a bunch of Chimeras. I could play an elite mech vet army.
Yeah.
I could do my Stormtroopers, and I have played my Stormtroopers alone just with Toroxes, and I play a very mobile, high firepower army that is still, at its core, my same Guard army. And stuff I can slot in and out of that army, and I can mix the two or whatever, and it's like I'm playing a different army every game, which is a really great way to keep yourself from getting fatigued playing the same army.
That's a good point. I can roll in and I can play a game with 10 Leman Russ tanks, or I can play an artillery-based game, or I can play super heavies. Or I can do an infantry horde, all with the same project that I've been working on. I can do flyer spam too. I can this army is out of control. It's too big, but
it's guards. What they do.
That's a really good idea. Is to find different ways to play your same army, or perhaps just practice playing the army and try to get good. GIT, GUD, get good. Where you can watch the streams or whatever, or read articles on it. I know that our friends are running Goonhammer, which is a website where they talk about tactics, where they talk about getting better at the game. I know our friend Rob Jones recently wrote a great article about upping your quality of your games on Goonhammer. And then he also, before that, wrote because he's like a math guy.
Yes.
He wrote a whole thing on probability, which I read, which was really, really good. I mean, of course, it's really, really good. It's fucking Rob. He's fantastic. But, like, it's a solid fucking article that breaks down some, for me at least, some potentially confusing ideas into something that's pretty easy to understand. So Goonhammer is a great resource. Goonhammer, I think .com, right? Just goonhammer.com?
I think so.
Yeah, check that out if you don't know it yet, listeners. But yeah, getting better at your army or trying to find new ways to play your army is always a good idea. And especially if it's an army that you've been playing and painting and collecting for a long time, you probably have a ton of stuff you can get into.
Well, conversely, instead of just getting good, you could also be on brand for the podcast and get bad.
Ooh.
Because you might be playing and you've figured it out. You've cracked the code. You've gotten in. You have made your army the perfectly oiled killing machine. And everything goes how it should, or as close to how it should as you want it to. But you've been doing this for a while. And you're getting bored just running the same, Rube Goldberg machine every single game. So change it up. Throw in some units that are not what you would normally take. Yeah. That might not be very good even, but can give your army some different flavor. Because we've definitely gotten a lot of a regular question we actually get is, I'm beating my friends too bad. What do I do? And the common thing is takes things that are suboptimal because they're things you haven't used before probably or don't use very often. So it's going to give you a different experience playing the army.
And then you can always run in, one of my things, whenever I take Flamestorm aggressors, is I try really hard to have them fire twice in one round of shooting. That's really all I want them to do. It's like an achievement. It's a personal achievement of mine to get my Flamestorm aggressors to fire twice in one round of shooting. It's so hard to set that up. But man, when it goes off, it's so good.
I would say my next point is find out what inspired that army in the first place and re-engage with it.
Ooh, here we go.
I love my Ultramarines I'm working on right now are this mix of the modern Primaris models with kind of some old Hammer aesthetics thrown in there. And when I do want to kind of I've definitely had a moment where I've been kind of more of these fucking intercessors, and I don't really want to keep painting them. I go back into my old Codex Ultramarines, way back into my old Rogue Trader books and so on, and just look through them, and I just kind of soak a lot of that inspiration back up, and it makes me want to try these new patterns, try these new symbols, try these new banners, try these different things, even with just how I'm painting them. Even recently I was looking at the Primaris Apothecary, and I'm kind of I don't want to paint this dude all white. That's kind of, I don't like doing that. It's not really fun to paint. And I found an old Rogue Trader medic paint scheme for Ultramarines. And I'm like, there we go. I'm going to be using this instead, where it's mostly blue, but it's still got white arms and red gloves or something silly like that. And it's going to look super cool and very distinctive. And I just found that by just going back to the roots of what inspired this army in the first place.
Yeah, one of the things I do is similar, and I focus on my successes as far as painting goes, where I can take a look at all the things that I've done for the army already, and that gives me a lot of motivation to keep going. Where if I'm struggling with, an edge highlighting layer or something with these intercessors or something, I can crack open my Raven Guard infantry box and take a look in there and be like, yeah, man, I have a lot of stuff, but if I get this 6th squad of intercessors done, I've got double battalion. The double Italian. Yeah, so
they're gonna get ground up in that grinder.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways to find motivation, and I've actually been, Scott Ferguson, the Brush Wizard on Twitter, at Brush Wizard, he's a fantastic painter, but he's been painting a lot of Deathcore as Steel Legion lately, but he's been doing these tanks too, and I've recently had some. I have a hankering to paint some tanks. But what I really need is just some turrets. So listeners, if you've got Lehman Russ turrets lying around, I will buy them off of you. I think this is the second time I've said it on the show.
This is at least the second time.
And until I get 4 more Lehman Russ turrets, I am going to keep fucking saying it. Okay, I've got one for you.
All right.
Here's the easy one, Campbell. Start a new army.
Yeah. No, if you shelve your army for a while and do something else, it'll still be there. GW does not squat armies very often.
No, they don't. It will still be playable, and you can come back to it whenever. So starting a new army. I think that starting a new army is a great opportunity for any hobbyist. And it's sort of like a rite of passage, your second army. And a lot of the times your second army is your quote-unquote real army. So I started with Grey Knights, right? And I moved on to Raven Guard, another power armor thing. But then I was like, man, I always wanted to play Guard. I always wanted to have a big fucking Guard army. And I still do. Like, it's amazing to have a big fucking guard army. And that's what I did. I started on what was, like, honestly, my real, at the time at least, real army, where it was the army that I've always wanted to play. And I've, through finding out how my armies played and seeing other people with, big fuck off guard armies, I was like, man, why can't that be me? Until Campbell, it was me and is me to this day.
That's inspirational.
But that's like
yeah.
That's so, like, a lot of people talk about, like, I'm a Dark Eldar player, but man, I really love the way orcs play.
Yeah.
Start fucking orcs, man. Go for it. Or, oh man, I really love the way Tau play. I really love the shooting heavy armies. Like, God, fucking go for it, dude. Do your thing. Another piece of advice starting a new army is always do an army that can ally with your army. You have a Chaos Space Marine army. Why don't you do some demons?
Or Trader Guard.
Or Knights. Or you have Dark Eldar. Why don't you do some Craft World or some Inari?
Yeah, because it's easier to get jazzed about a game when it's like, oh man, I painted a knight. All right, time to paint 5 more knights, then I can play a game or whatever. When instead you could just be like, all right, painted a knight. I'm just going to take some guard with him or some marines with him, and I can play with my new model right away. Yeah. Because, like, it has taken me like a few months to paint this 1,000 points of Ultramarines. And if I was going to wait until I had 2,000 points where I played a game, I'd be waiting until Nova. And until then, I'm probably going to ally them with either guard or knights or
use some of your
other space,
your retro ultras or something like that.
I don't think I'd use my retro ultras because they're on goblin green bases.
Ooh.
And they wouldn't fit that matching theme.
Yeah.
But I could use my heresy ultras, or at least some of them.
Yeah.
Save the same basing. Actually, I'm going to be using the same contemptors from them.
I mean, I do the same basing with my guard and my marines. With the idea that they can be used at the same time. And it's something that I do. Maybe not a lot, but occasionally.
Having the option there is worth it.
Yeah.
And, like, because I found that when I used to do every single army with a completely distinct basing scheme, like I had fucking resin bases for my Dark Angels army, and I had snow bases for my Valhallans, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I played a game where I tried allies for the first time in 6th edition. My guys had different bases, and it was bothering me the entire damn time.
You can't do it. But it's just important, as far as basing goes, to paint your base rims black because they finish the model.
Oh my fucking God. You can paint them whatever color you fucking want, all right? My Ultramarines have brown base rims. They look great.
No, you're absolutely right. You can paint them whatever color you want as long as it's black. So, what else you got?
Or brown. I was going to say, like, when you are playing a different army or even another game for a while, you could eventually miss your old army. And then that's when you know it's time to come back. Like, or you'll see something out there that inspires you to come back, whether you look for it or not. Because, like, for my Black Templars, there was a point where I was kind of, like, wavering on them. And then I saw I think Maxime Corbel, one of the heavy metal guys or GW guys, painted these gorgeous ones. And I'm looking at them. And my first thought was, why didn't I paint mine like that? But my second thought was, I should paint more Black Templars. No,
that's actually a good point. One of my points was, which I forgot to mention, for finding fun ways to use your existing army, is to repaint. Like I had to do it with my repulsor because I wasn't happy with the first paint job I did. But if there's models or something that you really love or you spent a long time converting and you want to go back to, I think that's a great way to get yourself back into that army, is to slap a new coat of paint on your commander or on a psyker or something cool. And models that you care about, models that you want to keep using. Maybe the paint is a little old. Maybe you've progressed in your skills. Give it a shot.
Yeah, and, I don't love stripping old models or whatever to repaint them, but my Black Templars, like, so much of that army is my Ultramarines from high school. Yeah. Like, an awful lot of that is just stripped and reused. And Ultramarines for me are just an army I keep returning to. Like, we had an episode way, way back about, like, why we chose the chapters we chose, and they are, like, that nostalgic core for me, and they are kind of a core part of Warhammer for me that I can always come back to.
They represent 40k to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, and they very much do to me as well.
Yeah. All right, so I've got one. Checking out a new game is always way to go, and I would suggest a small model count game. Necromunda, Kill Team,
Warhammer
Blood
Underworlds.
Bowl, Warhammer Underworlds, and then there's a myriad of small model count games outside of Games Workshop that you could play.
Yeah.
And doing something like that, working on a small project, can be extremely rewarding and a ton of fun. And by the time you're done with that, a lot of times you're ready to step back into your main 40k project. If you're, if that's what you're doing. So
once I finish these intercessors, I want to work on the the Night Vault goblins I've got in front of me right now, because they're on my desk staring at me, taunting me, and I'm very excited to paint them and then just be done and not have to paint like 600 more goblins. Just be like, here's 9 models and I'm done and I'm ready to paint something else.
Yeah, I'm 100% taking a break after these intercessors on Ravenguard and doing some Blood Bowl and Necromunda stuff, and maybe even these Shadespire goblins, because I feel like I could probably paint those up really quick.
You could. I think they'll paint up pretty quick. They are very small. They're detailed, but they are small.
Yeah. Okay, and then my last one here is get new friends. So this one there's a little bit of
Easy.
There's a little bit of a caveat here, which it's more like play with a different group of people. So your normal group, a lot of the times you're going to find you're playing the same armies over and over again with your same group. And if there's like another game store or something in your town that you can start going to sometimes and get games with people you don't normally play with, like this is a great way to revitalize your army, because you're going to be playing against people who aren't used to your tricks, aren't used to your strats, aren't used to your models, and they're going to come in and it's going to be a newer, fresher experience.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, when I went to about a year ago, I did a tournament at Alpha Omega Hobby where I brought my fucking Warhammer Empire army to an Age of Sigmar tournament.
I think you talked about this, yeah.
I did, and it was like I won the tournament because it's such an out of left field army. People don't know how to deal with it, and it was really cool to play in like this different environment against armies I don't normally see, and it was exciting. And it kind of gave me not just it didn't really give me a new passion to paint more Empire guys, but it did give me a new passion for the game itself. And it made me want to do more with Age of Sigmar on that particular day.
Yeah, and it's also another great thing would be like go to a tournament or go to a con or something with your old army and get some games against new people. And you might find yourself finding ways to use your army that you hadn't thought about. Yeah. You might find yourself getting into really fun games with armies or opponents you don't normally play. Like that is always a good idea to, inject some life into your hobby if you're feeling the doldrums.
Yeah, well, like after Adepticon, I don't feel so bummed out about my Templars anymore.
Yeah, you fucking shouldn't.
I fucking cleaned up.
God, I want to go up against your Templar list so bad.
You will bulldoze me. I guarantee you will bulldoze me.
With my Primaris Marines, I honestly think I would just wreck the shit out of your list. Yeah, and it's probably because I know the weak points to like shoot for and shit, like literally shoot
Which
at.
Is most of them.
Yeah,
most of them.
But because I think let's talk about this for a moment, because your Black Templar is one of your older armies right now. No, you've been working on it recently. You finished it.
I started them pretty much with 8th edition.
Okay, but I do remember you talking about how you weren't enjoying playing them that much.
Yeah, I just was not very effective in a lot of my games, and I think it was just kind of like in my sort of local meta, which is frankly not a very tough one. They weren't faring very well, but I think it's largely because this is an army that everyone's known how to deal with since 4th edition.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of your success at Adepticon is you brought an army of close combat-oriented small Marines, which is something that people don't see a whole lot, and they might not know what to shoot first, right?
Yeah.
At this point, I feel like everybody knows to shoot Hellblasters first.
Yeah.
Like, if you see Hellblasters, kill the fucking Hellblasters first. Again, listeners, trust your boy, DZ, on this one. If you see Hellblasters across your table, kill them first, always. That's the number one. They're heavy lifters. But when there's like sword brethren, well, I don't think you brought your sword brethren, but there's
I brought my 20-man Crusader squads.
20-man Crusader squads and a Lightning Claw Tartarus Terminators. People are what do I do? Yeah, that's a tough one, man. That's good.
Yeah, playing in a different environment is, again, I don't really want to paint more Templars, but I don't mind playing more with them. I think that's kind of where I'm sitting with them right now.
Okay, I see. I feel you. Yeah. God, I want that. I want to play that army so bad. I would fucking crush you. Oh my God, it would be so great.
You will destroy me.
Oh, we should bet. We should play a game and bet our medals.
No, I will bet my challenge coin with Carl Tuttle every single event, but those medals are mine. They're staying around my neck. I sleep with those fuckers on.
With 5 fucking medals guaranteed. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about the Thrills?
I think that's all I got. I think you got a few good ways to deal with the doldrums here.
Well, as per usual, we'd love to hear from you guys. If you've experienced feeling not so good about your army and had a renaissance and came back to it, or you're in the middle of it right now and you're looking for tips on how to go, contact us. Get at us. Contact at 40kbadcast.com is the best way to do it. We'd love to talk to you about this. We've been getting a lot of emails recently where we've just had some nice conversations with people. So, again, we want to, this, it's a cry for help. We love to talk about this hobby. We love to talk about these topics and these segments that we do. So get at us, contact at 40kbadcast.com. All right, let's move on to the marquee segment, the big one, the swinging dick around here.
Oh, all right.
It's
more like a swinging fic, but not this week.
Fact or fan fiction. We're in it. We're doing it. And Campbell, you're gonna unleash something squamish with us today, aren't you?
Well, I'm gonna do something a little different this time, actually.
Are you?
We've been doing this for almost 50 episodes, and if you've listened before, it's trying to figure out what's real, what's licensed fiction, and what's from DeviantArt or fanfiction.net or what have you. But this time around, I'm gonna recite lyrics from 3 different songs, and you have to tell me which one is actually a licensed song about Warhammer.
Okay. This is awesome, and I love it that we're doing it on episode 49, the turning point episode, the keystone episode.
Oh, yeah, no. Episode 49 is where we're going a lot, and episode 50 is going to be, completely normal. There's going to be nothing different about it. It's going to go episode 49, then episode 51.
Oh, man. Oh, the McElroy brothers did that with their
with episode 420.
Yeah, where they skipped it.
They still haven't done one, have they?
Yeah, they skipped. They're not gonna fucking do it.
No, you can't. It's like us. We won't be able to do episode 69.
Yes, we will. I promise. I promise you, Campbell, and also listeners, that we're doing episode 69, and it's gonna be wet.
It's gonna be episode
wild.
Fuck pattern 69,
and it's gonna be just our dads will hate it. Your dads will hate it. All dads will hate it. Okay.
All dads go to heaven too.
All right. Give me that shit. You got 3 songs, and I have to guess which one is an actual licensed Games Workshop song.
Right.
Okay.
All right. First one. Into the abyss I'll fall, the eye of Horus. Into the eyes of night, watching me go. And that is the line from song 1.
Okay.
Song 2. A Steeler's kiss, honey. That's fine, baby. You're so sublime. But it don't quite hit that little spot for me. I need a woman with a alien way. Hit me with a hammer, baby. That's okay. And the third and final. For the king we will ride to the dark galactic skies to defeat the foes when the chaos wizards rise. Now the universe will burn, evil sorcerer returns, tragic fate rages tonight, chaos wizards rise.
Oh, man.
So of these 3, which is a licensed song and which 2 are totally not?
Okay. Well, the first one references Horus, the Eye of Horus, which, as we all know, is a licensed product. So that makes me think it's the first one. The second one references Steelers, which could be Gene Steelers, which, again, a licensed product. So that a case for the second one. The second one is weirdly sexual. So and GW hasn't really gone in for that too much in the last 20 years or so. That doesn't mean that song. Okay, doesn't matter. Second one, maybe. First one, maybe. Second one, maybe. Third one, extremely maybe, because that sounds like a real fucking song.
Well, these are all real fucking songs, just only one's a Games Workshop licensed one.
I got to go with my gut here. I got to go with the Eye of Horus. The first one is licensed by Games Workshop. I'm cringing. I'm a ball of anxiety.
All right. That is Power Slave by Iron Maiden.
Oh no! That Horus,
is the
god
of that song.
The fucking
yes.
Oh god, the Egyptian god.
I'm a slave to the power of death. That is Power Slave by Iron Maiden.
God damn it!
All right. No. What is your second guess?
Second song.
Okay, that one actually is it. That is Steeler's Kiss by D-Rock off their 1991 album Oblivion.
Okay.
And that is about Gene Steelers. Yes, that album has the honor of the cover art being that piece with the Space Marine who is fucking Scarface.
Yeah,
with the bare hand and everything and the gritting face and all that. Yeah, and the third and final song was Rise of the Chaos Wizards by Glory Hammer, which is an extremely stupid power metal band.
Okay, I didn't think it was fucking the third one, but all right. Ugh, God damn it! I should have known. I should have fucking known. Oh, I feel like an asshole.
I'm very happy to give you all this wonderful view into what my fucking Spotify playlist looks
All
like.
right, well, that actually was a ton of fun, and I am gonna get destroyed on Twitter and an email about that one. Can't wait for that.
Please at Dan about that.
I'm gonna get dunked on so fun. How did I not know that? Jesus.
It's this obscure song by this obscure band you never heard of.
Called Iron Maiden. In my defense, I don't own that album. Fucking Power Slave, so I don't. Yeah, that's. I mean, I've heard that song before, but I don't know. All right, well, suck it, listeners. Okay, let's get to let's do some plugs before we get out of here.
Sure.
So first thing I want to mention is we have exceeded 100 supporters on Patreon, and it is amazing.
Dude, it rips. It rules. I am so excited about that.
It's so fucking awesome that 100 of you wanted to support the podcast with actual dollars. Like, it means it's so fucking much to me that we have a core group of supporters that are willing to go that far and help us out, help us keep doing fun things, help Campbell get to Adepticon, help me. Well, this month, help me buy a bunch of terrain because I'm planning on having a terrain day with my friend Scott. Like it's so cool that you guys are a part of our lives like that, and I'm so thankful and so humbled by the fact that you're doing this for us.
No, it means a fuckload to both of us, and we both really appreciate it.
All right, I want to mention that the Badcast Beatdown 2019 Sports versus Anime. We haven't mentioned it in a couple of shows, but it's still happening at Nova, unofficial, table 69, 2 p.m. on Thursday. Like, be there.
And be square.
And be square, because it's a Warhammer thing, but sports versus anime. Choose your fighter and dress up and come down. What side are you going to choose, Campbell?
Jeez, I don't know. I haven't already pre-ordered a JoJo shirt on eBay. Yeah, who would win, a sports team or one weeby boy? But yeah, no, come on down. We're going to be doing it. It's going to be fun. We'll roll out some fucking missions. It's probably going to be something
Just
stupid like an open war game.
1,500 points. We'll tell you what game to play when you get there. Don't worry about it. Email us. Contact at 40kbadcast.com. We've already talked about it on the show, but we always need questions for We Make the Call. So please, if you have any questions, if you're just like idly thinking, I wonder what Dan and Campbell would say about that, just fucking send it in.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be Warhammer related. It probably should be, but it doesn't have to be.
We have had WMDK questions on the show about birds in the past. Could we have them in the future? Only time will tell.
Oh, you are just fishing for that one, aren't you?
I'm always ready to answer bird questions. All right, then social
I answered
media.
cat questions recently too. It was pretty all right.
Will we have our third member of the show, Numi, was on last show.
Yeah, she was. She's very vocal.
She already has a fan base too, which is great.
Yeah, this is true.
Social media, Twitter is a great way to talk to us. I'm at DB_Sleazy. He is at Brother SRM, and it's crazy out there. It's the wild fucking west on Twitter, bud.
What have you been tweeting about?
That guy who did the Alien comics is like a milkshake duck now.
Yo, he's super, super, super like fundamentalist Christian, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, he's like a pro-lifer, and I liked those comics, and I followed him, and then I was like, heard about that, and I was like, nope, can't do that no mo.
I've been tweeting about the Lyft driver I had yesterday who punched me in the face.
Wait, you got to explain that. I saw you mention that, and I was just like, Campbell's probably exaggerating. Are you?
It wasn't out of rage. She just was like, oh, let me adjust that seat. And I was sitting in the back and she just like right hooked me.
Oh, man.
It was pretty all right. 5 stars.
Okay, great. Then, of course, we sell extremely flammable T-shirts in our
the most flammable in the industry.
shop.spreadshirt.com/40kbadcast. And you can be just like us and wear your Call to the Swole-Armed Emperor shirt to a local tournament and have people asking questions like, why did you wear a tank top in April? Why didn't you wear deodorant today? Why are you so sweaty and moist?
I mean, people ask me that question literally all the time, irrespective of climate or outfit. So
Irregardless.
it just helps with that. Your favorite word.
Okay.
I'm glad we can keep that going for 2 episodes.
There's plenty of. We have 2 inside bits from last episode in this show for the astute listeners. Yeah, so there are plenty of other extremely flammable body wear that you can buy on our shop, and I suggest that you do. And one more thing, as always, I'd love to make a plea to introduce the show to your friends to help us grow the show by word of mouth, by telling people. We had a great time on Twitter the other week where a fella had been tweeting about he didn't like American podcasts because there's too much toxic masculinity and machismo. And then one of our listeners tweeted him and said, hey, why don't you check out the 40k Badcast? They don't do that. He did, and he tweeted at us and said that he really loved the show. So that made me incredibly happy. Yeah, I know it made Campbell incredibly happy, and we're trying to grow the show and do the best we can without, like, I don't have Facebook, so that's a hurdle right there. So, so unfortunately, I need to lean on our listeners a little bit. So please tell your friends about the show, introduce them to it. If you're going to a con or to a tournament or something, and you're in the car together, why talk to your friend when you can listen to 2 friends talk to one another? Do the work for you.
Yeah, we get all the interplay instead. Like, you don't need to worry about it. It's taken care of.
It's good.
I mean,
we're good.
I even saw a skit posted recently by a friend of ours, Muggins, I think, on the Sig Marxism subreddit, which was a great subreddit for the 30 seconds before tankies took it over.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not. It's Reddit. It's not. But still, you can post there if you want. It's fine. And if you want, also leave us iTunes reviews. That's super helpful in getting the show out there and having it pop up on other people's like recommendations and shit. And yeah, it'll be cool. The reviews there are also actually generally really funny. So read those while you're at it.
Yes. All right. And Campbell, we usually end the show with a quote from the Warhammer 40K universe, and that's supplied by you generally. So when I say generally, I mean always. So please,
literally,
give us that good shit.
A coward always seeks compromise.
Oh, man. No compromise, no surrender. We're the 40k Badcast. We're bad at 40k. You can too. I'm Dan Boyd. He's Campbell McLaughlin, and we'll see you in the next cartoon.